And we are now recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Assad Butt, and I'm the Director of Ventures and Partnerships at Kinship and also a partner in the LEAP Venture program. We're really excited to have you here. This is the first time that we're doing this, and so it could be great. It could be a shit show. Who knows? But we're excited. We're excited. We have two awesome doctors, veterinarians from the Kinship team who know everything about vet tech or veterinary technology or veterinary care and startups and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a really great conversation. So a quick introduction to, I think you guys can see my slides, but Dr. Susie Tarrin and Dr. Aletha Carson. I'll have them both introduce themselves in a second. Just a little bit about what's going to happen. I think this is mostly going to be a Q&A. There's not really a presentation involved. I should have taken that off the slide. But essentially, as you guys have questions, pop them into the chat. We might have you guys voice the questions as long as it doesn't get too rowdy. We want to hear about what you're working on and what feedback that you want the doctors to give you. I think based on the number of people, we might keep you muted. But we'll see how things progress. Just understand this, again, this is the first time that we're doing this, and so it's a test for us. And the session is being recorded. So a little bit about LEAP Ventures. I think most of you are aware, but we are a platform that's really here to support the pet care startup ecosystem from across the globe. And we do that in a number of different ways. We're a partnership between Kinship, which is a division of Mars Pet Care, and Michelson Found Animals Foundation, which is a premier nonprofit, social nonprofit in Southern California that's doing some really interesting work in the shelter, rescue, and research space.
So I think
somebody's
pretty straightforward.
Yeah. People, sorry.
Two.
Sorry, I'm just hearing some background. I'm going to unmute Aletha. And so LEAP Ventures, we have two really kind of big programs. The first is our LEAP Venture Academy. This is part of the academy, our way to support the startup ecosystem. We're doing office hours, webinars, classes, pitch competitions, boot camps, all geared to helping pet care startups get to the next level. You can go to our website and check out the ones that are coming up. We have like 5 in the next couple days, so certainly join others if you want. We have one tomorrow, which is an informational session on what LEAP is doing. We have one on Monday, which is about fundraising in the pet care space. And then we have one, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week that's about finding a co-manufacturer if you guys happen to have a product like a treat or a dog food or a cat food that you want to have, mass marketed. All great webinars. If you have an idea of a webinar that you want us to do, let us know. And then we have our Venture Studio. Applications for it just opened up. It is our accelerator program where we find the best of the best pet care startups from around the world. We bring them to LA and we put them through the ringer and how to run a business in pet care and connections and access to advice and money. We've done it 2 times now. This is our 3rd time. We're going to be bringing in 8 companies. Highly recommend it for anybody in the pet care space that's interested in getting to the next level. If you are interested in that program, again, we have a webinar tomorrow about it, so highly recommend you watch that. I'll be posting that with our partner from Michelson Found Animals. Again, applications for that are open now. So that's the kind of all the nonsense. We're going to first get introductions really quickly, maybe a couple minutes. Aletha, you want to share your background and kind of how you got to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, it could probably take more than a couple minutes there. I think I'd love to sum up my career as not all who wander are lost. And I think that's really cool because I bring a lot of diversity to this position. I have, worked as, in mechanical, industry. I have worked in high tech. I have, obviously gone to vet school, and I worked in ambulatory equine practice when I started out. And then I have worked in, clinic setting, clinic leadership. I've worked in IT, obviously in this kinship role, and has just have, a lot of different experiences through that sort of, diverse track. I am just a lifelong learner and just love to learn about new things, and just always really interested in, how those can apply to, pets and love of animals. I love Assad's got the picture with me and the horse here. I am, I love horses. So if you want to talk about horses, we can talk about those, but I get limited on that a bit. But in my particular role right now, I'm doing a lot with telehealth and, new technologies, how we can, integrate some of the great new things that are coming out, products on the market to look at, pet health in, new ways. And I think the other piece of that is that because I have such a really solid clinical background, I'm really grounded in practicality of what it's like for a day-to-day practitioner and the unique challenges that particular the veterinary profession holds for, rolling out new products and new things. I am a above average change agile associate for the veterinary space. I'm a rare extrovert. So most of my colleagues are a little quieter and a little bit more resistant to new things. So.
And can you tell us how many animals you have?
Then people judge. I actually don't have that many. I only have one dog. So I mean, start off there. 2 cats, a bunny, 10 chickens, and 7 horses.
Oh wait, I missed. How many horses?
7.
7 horses. Excellent.
Yes. And the one in the picture is actually not mine. It's a friend's. But I'm thinking about getting a team of Clydesdales too, because why not? So.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks, Aletha. And Susie, are you there as well? I think you're on mute.
Yes, I am here too. So a little background on me. I started my career in veterinary medicine, opening a hospital in Mexico City, which is where I'm originally from. So it's a teaching hospital in partnership with Banfield Pet Hospital. And so the fun part of that was that I got to see a lot of kind of the back end processes that are required to get something up and running, including in IT. So anyway, after that first initial delving into kind of starting a hospital from day 0, the next track was obviously going into practice. So I've been was a general practitioner for quite some time in the Portland, Oregon area. After which I had bitten by the IT bug, as Aletha might attest to as well. So decided to go back into the IT world and help develop some of the electronic medical record that was being used. So had a 5 to 7 year stint in IT, which was kind of eye-opening in what is possible and what isn't possible, and how there's sometimes a disconnect between the people developing the technology being used by the people on the front lines. So trying to fill that gap, which kind of got the whole technology thing started in my brain. So after that, I moved over to strategy. So worked on strategy for a veterinary company. This is all with Banfield. And then after doing that for about 3 years, I then moved to this kinship group, where I think, probably a key thing to tell everyone is what we are working on doing as far as our particular team within kinship is looking at the pain points that are experienced both by pet owners who are trying to get care for their pets, and obviously by extension, the pets themselves getting the care, as well as the pain points being experienced by veterinary teams who are trying to deliver that care and figure out new ways in which we can deliver care effectively across the whole ecosystem. So that's kind of what I work on now. So much like Aletha, it's been kind of a circuitous route, and I've always been very lucky that I've managed to find something new and exciting kind of every 2 to 3 years that has allowed me to expand horizons. And now I pretty much say I only play a vet on TV, though I don't literally do that, but haven't been in practice for quite some time. So that's me in a nutshell, and I can see that there's already a bunch of questions coming across, so we can move across to those.
Yeah, so one caveat is that, this is just feedback from 2 veterinarians. And so, take it all with a grain of salt. And but yeah, so let's just get right to it. So first question from Jessica, Jess. Is there a knowledge graph for pet health diagnoses or a way of assessing how zootonic diseases spread across regions? Is there any need for that? Who wants to go first?
Yeah,
I saw you unmuted quicker than I did, Aletha, so feel free to go first.
No, I mean, I was just going to correct. I saw it too. It's zoonotic.
Oh, sorry.
For diseases that transmit from people to from animals to people, or vice versa. I mean, I think there's always a need for this sort of thing. As far as off the top of my head, I'm not aware of anybody who is tracking this for the general public. I mean, I think this is obviously something that, you know, the USDA and Animal APHIS keeps track of to some degree, especially once we get to the zoonotic reportable diseases. So it's not something I play with on an everyday piece, but the resources are generally through the federal regulatory system. Do you have anything to add, Susie?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is I think, yeah, is there a need for this? I think yes, and I think as the health movement takes hold in a, you know, in kind of a more robust way, I can see this becoming more both necessary and more in the forefront of people's minds. So this, you know, this notion of how do we bring vets and together to produce a more robust healthcare network across species, right? Let's not put the vets on one side and the doctors on another. Let's bring everybody together because there's huge benefit to that. So if looking at the core of the question of is there a need for that, I would say yes. I would say there isn't anything robust in place today, and it would be something that probably has a home.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a little bit happening in the public health space, but it's nothing that's easy to access. And I would say it's probably way more robust for the livestock industry than it is for the companion animal industry.
Right. Next question is, how do veterinarians like to learn about new tools, new purchases for their practices? We'll go to Susie first.
So I think it depends on the vet. As Aletha mentioned in her intro, varying degrees of desire to be out in the world. The extrovert-introvert equilibrium is disbalanced, I would say, unbalanced in the veterinary space. There tends to be a higher number of introverts, which makes it hard for them to go out and seek these tools themselves. So I think when they come to them, it's better. The challenge, I would say, in the industry as a whole, and again, I'm generalizing. So as Assad said, take this with a grain of salt, since it's just a leave that in my opinion. The challenge, I would say, is that the veterinary industry is a little bit reluctant to dive into new technologies and new tools unless they see an immediate need, and that's kind of an in-their-face need. So I think it really does depend on what new tools and new purchases you're talking about. If it's a tool I'm used to using, like an anesthetic monitoring machine, looking for an upgrade, that's a very different conversation than it's a brand new technology that could potentially revolutionize the way that you are engaging with your customers, your pet parents or anything like that. I think those two conversations are completely different. So it's a little difficult to answer the question because I think my opinion is it's based on the type of technology and what the vet is potentially looking for or the pain points that they perceive in their life.
I like to think of this one as two really key pieces. I mean, fast and easy. How is this going to make their life better? And how is it something that's not going to take them a ton of extra time to integrate? And then the other piece is, does it work? I mean, there's so many pieces that come across on, the magazines, ad spaces. I mean, there's a ton of noise out there. And as you're filtering through that, it's like, how do I know that this is something that I can put my name to and go out and stand behind? Because if I'm making a recommendation, I'm immediately staking my reputation on the line for what we're looking at. And so they need to have some way of having confidence in what they're doing, and whether that is, through traditional methods of, university studies and, trials and tests or things like that, or a new way to show efficacy.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? And especially, as you guys have been a part of a large organization, how much of it is a top-down from corporate versus a bottoms-up coming from patients in terms of requesting new things or cheaper alternatives or whatever? Like, and how much of it is just the veterinarian who is, curious about this and wants to have whatever the new thing is in the practice?
I think it's honestly a little bit of all. I mean, and it comes down to, do I trust it? Is it going to make my life easier? Depending on which direction it comes from, you tend to have different levels of trust. If it's, in a corporate situation and it's cascaded down, generally there's been a vetting process that you feel like you can trust something, and you can be absolved of the responsibility of, tons of due diligence and checking something out. Or if it's a client who comes in and says, hey, I saw this on the internet, and you're like, wow, it looks like the best thing since sliced bread. Does it work? Because it looks like it fixes everything right here, and that's immediately a red flag. So just kind of depending on where it's coming from. And then obviously our own curiosity of, some people who are, early, adopters and like to check out all the new things. I mean, certainly there's, a level of those practitioners as well.
Great. We'll move on to the next question from Ilya. I'm building a platform to connect breeders with end customers for pets and livestock short gestation cycles. We want to provide better transparency for the end customer and wanted to see what resources we could provide to end customers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I see Susie's still on mute, and I like to talk. So, so I think make sure I'm understanding that this is something that connects breeders to their essentially product, which is the pets or livestock that they're selling to clients.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. So the thought is that they would have, the ability to, kind of follow up on where, what conditions they're seeing in, the animals, or is that sort of kind of what you're thinking here?
Yeah, I was thinking of like getting some review-based data based off of, previous adopters or previous purchasers, as well as kind of providing in just some information on, a new cat owner, on good breeding practices that they should ask the breeders ahead of time.
I mean, I think this is a really interesting concept because I think there's always been a little bit of a disjunct between veterinarians and breeders. There's a little bit of underlying animosity, breeders kind of putting out there things that are not really science and founded. So, I mean, I think having a platform where there's, responsibly sourced information would be amazing. I also can see, I just read a case about a breeder and the heartbreak of discovering a really horrid genetic disease. And it took a little while to put together all the pieces because, following up on, pets that had gone out to different families over the years, it ended up being a really devastating issue to this particular breeder, finding out, kind of way late in the process that they'd had quite a few litters that had ended up going on to have a terminal condition. So, having a way to follow up and even improve the lineage and, get clients the, support that they need for that particular pet, that's, be really interesting.
Yeah. And I guess what I was kind of wondering is like, what are the top 3 things that a new pet owner, well, let's just focus on pets, like a new pet owner would want to ask a breeder prior to, purchasing a new animal?
So I'll jump in here so Aletha doesn't have to cover everything. So kind of building on what Aletha said and trying to answer your question both at the same time, I think there's a huge gap in pet parents, future pet parents, knowing what they need to ask about that particular breed. So something like bringing together the information from the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals, for example, if you haven't used that as a resource, the OFA, bringing together what they recommend as things, genetic conditions that you want to watch out for in a particular breed, and marrying that with almost like an assessment of the family that is going to be adopting the pet and whether that particular breed fits that family, and then seeing, you know, kind of bringing those two things together so that a pet parent can make an informed decision about, one, is this the right type of pet that I'm getting, and that would be, you know, breed based, and two, is the breeder that I'm looking at somebody who monitors for these types of conditions and can show me that they have been doing, you know, over time. So for me, as a pet parent, I would think it's right pet for me. Is the pet I'm getting one who is, you know, as free as possible from diseases that are known for that pet? And three, kind of what has been the care on thinking not medically but behaviorally, what is the socialization that has occurred with that pet, depending on the family I'm bringing it to. So for example, if you're bringing a pet home to a family with small kids, has the puppy, you know, or kitten being exposed to small children, you know, what is that kind of behavioral socialization aspect? So those would be, I would say, those would be my top three. And I think breeders would likely, good breeders would likely really enjoy this kind of technology that you could put together for them, because it would show how they are better than others, and therefore, you know, highlight them as a good breeder as opposed to others who aren't following you know, the recommendations around genetic testing and socialization and stuff like that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And then Olivia had a question that just came in. That I think is kind of similar or pertinent to this discussion. Do you think pets have personality types like humans?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's one of those pieces that, you know, Susie mentioned it, like finding the right pet for me and my lifestyle. I mean, certain pets just, I mean, think about it, like the gregarious golden retriever, you know, the aloof, you know, sort of,
the aloof Shiba Inu.
Yeah, Shiba Inu. Yes. I mean, I was like, yeah, I'm like, pick one out of that group. Yeah. I mean, there's finding, you know, right personality for your lifestyle, I think is one of the critical pieces to making that human animal bond the best that it can be. And there's some breeds that just are not right for the situation. I mean, I'll segue a small story. I mean, I have a German Shorthair Pointer, and everybody's like, wow, she's an amazing dog. Yes, she is, but she is super high energy. Do not put this dog in an apartment and expect her to be an amazing dog. You know, so there's also, you know, just breed requirements as well to, you know, have their personality manifest in an appropriate way. If she was not exercised and frustrated out of her mind, she is not a very fantastic dog. She's very destructive, actually. So.
Nice. Felicia Jackson says, I invented a disposable CPR template for dogs. My human one is called CPR Wrap. The product has visual prompts for hand placement and simple instructions for CPR. The barrier is attached to the hands that conform to any size snout to give mouth and the snout rescue breathing. We would be the first to enter the market for a CPR device for animals. I have partnered with local vets, but do you think I should partner with a larger pet care company or go full retail on my own?
Great question. Ooh, I would have to say if you can do both simultaneously initially, that's what I would do if you have the bandwidth. Certainly if you can get the ear of a larger pet care company, it's going to go a long way to, you know, being able to move large volumes of these quickly. However, getting through the process of a large pet company accepting your products could be tedious and very time consuming. So you might find full retail is a better way to go. And I'm assuming you mean full retail for sale to vets, right? Not, you know, so it would be a vet-based. So if you have the bandwidth, I would do both, because I think then you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. If you have to pick one or the other, so I would probably go with the larger pet care company to begin with. just because it will be an initial uphill battle, but if you do get to the top of the mountain, then the rest will be easy pickings. But again, totally my opinion. Let's see what Aletha might be in complete disagreement with me.
No, I'm sitting here kind of thinking, and maybe I don't completely understand the product. I think if you're heading to a large partner pet care company, you need to have a why what you're doing is better than any other products out there on the market, and what problems it'll solve. CPR is obviously something that we know is needed, and something that additional training on is always welcome. But just having a good idea of what else is out there and where you fit in the space. I also see potentially for retail. I mean, this is something that consumers are always interested in. What do I do if my dog has an emergency, and how do I support them to the vet or things like that. I mean, certainly there may be a space in the consumer market as well.
If I can jump in, I
Sure,
do
go
have
ahead.
the ear of Pet Safe and Mars Pet Care. I actually was in Nashville, went to 3686 and met the panel there, and was able to show the product. But I thought bringing it out, because we do have pre-orders, and people want that more than they want the human CPR product, which I thought kind of weird, but it happens. But aligning with a larger company, other than doing this on my own and getting out there, I thought would be a better way to go. I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely a space for always having a new training product in this space. Is something that's easy to use in an emergency situation. There's a lot of times where assistants or that maybe don't have any really extensive training background. Maybe they're first to initiate while they're getting the vet out of surgery or getting the vet out of a room, or plenty of situations. Just demonstrating how your product fits into the emergency flow of the clinic, and effectiveness would be.
Yeah, and I would just, from a starter perspective, I think the big question that I would have is, what is your runway, and your ability to, contracts with large organizations could take, anywhere from 6 months to, 2 years. And do you have the bandwidth to kind of work through that process, to get the agreement in place? Whereas if you go direct to consumer, direct to retail, you might be able to get revenue faster that will allow you to then explore the larger contracts. But that's just from a starter perspective, without any vet perspective.
Good information. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia, what do veterinarians wish they knew once patients leave their appointment?
Oh my gosh.
I think we have 30 minutes. Hopefully you can answer within that time frame.
That they got what we were trying to say. I mean, that they understand the follow through, and that they will. You have any questions, but they don't ask, or they're embarrassed to ask. Or, just wish they knew that we cared, that they follow up on their pet, and and understand what's needed fully.
Susan, do you want to add?
Yeah, I'd have to echo that, and then that that they understood how to comply with the follow-up, and then that they were complying with the follow-up. I think that would be hugely beneficial for any recheck. When the recheck happens, it's often difficult to know if there's been failure because there wasn't the ability to comply with the directions, or because the actual the therapy failed itself. So I think there's compliance is kind of one of my big soapboxes. I think that's what I would take as a single answer, though. To Aletha's point, we could talk the next half hour on this. So
yeah, do they understand fully?
Yeah. Trish Richter has a question. In the absence of clinical studies and purely based on the anecdotal evidence available, how is CBD being viewed in the veterinary space today? For instance, would you recommend it as a means to treat seizures and anxiety in pets? Do you carry any CBD products in your clinics?
I've done a little digging in this space, and I, as my personal opinion, I I see a lot of promise here. I think that there's still a lot of hesitancy in depending on which practitioner you're talking to. I mean, just straight up, the regulatory environment is just starting to sort itself out. And a lot of veterinarians have not had the time and space to fully understand what that is, and have been, educated throughout their careers that, this is, a class 1, drug, and, we are kind of hesitant to touch it. So I think there's a lot of the population that still falls really into that space. And I think the other piece here is and I mentioned it earlier, that when any product comes out and says that it can cure just about anything, there's a natural level of skepticism about it. And I think CB definitely has a lot of potential in some, really solid use cases. And, as the evidence becomes stronger for that, the profession will definitely be jumping on board. And then just like anything else in the supplement market, having, quality controls in a product that they can trust and put their name behind, as far as, does it have actually what it says in the label? Is there, other safety protocols and, quality standards that are being set by the company that's making it? They feel like they can trust the product.
Susie, do you want to add anything? Okay. Excellent. Lucia. Hi, Susanna and Aletha. In VetCase, we are building a platform to connect pet owners and primary care vets with specialized vets, so specialized vets can treat patients remotely, telehealth. At the same time, we will be keeping a record of the cases and trying to get data to use for different purposes. What advice can you give us?
Do you want to take this, Aletha, as the telehealth specialist on the team?
Yeah, I mean, so making sure I understand this. So this is a platform that allows a primary care vet to work with a specialist vet, like say in the appointment room, to get information on the pet and perhaps avoid or, complement a visit to the specialist.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, it would be to treat the patient together. I mean, maybe the primary care vet doesn't have the knowledge to treat, I don't know, cancer or some disease that is, more complex. So it would be, for primary care veterinary vets and also for, I don't know, pet owners that directly can access a specialized vet.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I think this is definitely something that is a pain point in the industry that needs to be addressed and made easier. I mean, because we have the systems in place that are like traditional, like I will call the specialist, we're playing phone tag, and I'll get you back at some other point. But and especially a lot of younger practitioners being confident in what they're recommending. Sometimes they have that sort of imposter syndrome of like, oh my gosh, am I going to feel like an idiot if I send this to the specialist and it doesn't really need to go to the specialist? Wouldn't it be great if I could get a specialist to consult right here and there in the room to, understand, is there something, is best to do for the pet while they're awaiting their appointment? Do I need an appointment? We spend a lot of time in triage, with a few other companies, like, do I need to go to the vet or not? This is almost, I kind of see this as, do I need to go to the specialist or not? And what are the things I need to do to prepare for this? So I like this. And, I think as far as, getting data for different purposes, I think that there's a lot of potential for when a case should be referred, outcome data that would be interesting to start capturing here. If you could, and obviously you might not have some, completely the negative controls, but how to show that, pets have better outcomes by a collaboration with at an earlier time rather than, the primary care doctor, trying to do too many things before they get referred. If that makes sense.
And you had some other questions. Do you want to just quickly ask your next one?
We have a ton of questions. I don't want to.
Maybe ask one more that you want.
Yeah, we've been leaving questions in the chat window, and then I've mixed it up with the other questions. But yeah, we were wondering a lot about how vets share information between each other, if there are some kind of associations, platforms, and I mean, what do you do when you want to consult a vet on a particular case?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resources out there, and some of them are more developed than others. I mean, obviously, we have VIN's Veterinary Information Network is probably the most robust platform that's out there, and it's veterinary only. And there's a lot of like forums on there that vets can go, chat with other veterinarians and even get input from specialists on particular cases. And it's generally fairly, not necessarily real time, but within a short amount of time for follow up. And obviously, there's different associations and groups of colleagues, and I'm sure there's a few others as well. I mean, there's online Facebook groups. I mean, there's just tons of places where vets are aggregating and chatting back and forth. So
Great.
And do you use some terminology standards? I mean, to input information like Sonomed, CT, or something like that?
Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo and I missed most of
Yeah,
that.
I think I heard enough about that. So no, I mean, I think there isn't there aren't veterinary standards that are established across the industry right now around SNOMED CT or that type of stuff. There's very few. The only one that is officially recognized by the AVMA, I believe, but still at this point is DICOM, which is the radiology standard or imaging standard. So how robust they are in use of SNOMED CT or the extension that was created for veterinary medicine is really dependent on the electronic medical record that's being used to document the case. And then one kind of follow-up, I just want to make sure most of what you seem to talk about was kind of vet-to-vet consults, but you did mention client consults as well. And I just want to make sure, again, it's kind of the elephant in the room, but that you are familiar and are mindful of the VCPR, the vet relationship guidelines that the AVMA has put out. You can just say, yes, I am, and we can move on from there. So.
Yeah, we've read about it. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Awesome. We're going to move on to the next.
Okay, thank you.
Questions. Thank you so much. So question, is there room for fun treatments in the veterinary space or follow-up care space? Do you think the relationship among owners, pets, and vet can ever be fun-filled? You could just say yes. And then
Yeah, I smile because I think, it's clinic by clinic and, that this sort of thing happens, and it's a lot to do with, how you create that space. I mean, for example, the last small animal practice that I was at, I mean, we really encouraged our clients to come in for happy visits, and it was really beneficial to the young dogs or dogs that were scared of coming into the vet. But at the other point, it's actually really awesome for our team members' engagements because you've got a time where you weren't actually like doing any treatments. I mean, you were just petting the dogs and providing treats and love, and and they were warming up to you and opening up, and we saw great improvement in our ability to work with these pets and not have their anxiety through the roof when they came in, and the clients as well too, because the clients they trusted us because we were doing what was fun with their pet. We were building relationships. I think that, unfortunately, making time and space for this in the day is sometimes hard, but I think that it would be something that would be really awesome to really encourage, just to have, I mean, there's a lot of, talk about having fear-free practices where, the dogs come in, but if every time they come in, they're getting poked with a needle or poked with some sort of treatment or restrained or things like that, it becomes really hard to, and I oftenly joke, the truth isn't jest, but you come into this profession and you want to help and love animals, and you spend a lot of your time in some ways treating them causes them pain because you gave them an injection, you did surgery or things like that, and they start to shy away from you, and it kind of hurts, I think, our little veterinary souls a little bit. So I like this one.
Great. We'll move on because we got so many questions. Sydney, we have a harness that can continuously and remotely collect TPR and activity level or ECG readings on dogs. could you see this product in any clinic or mostly in clinics who see the most critical care patients?
I'll jump in here. Clinic that is doing anything beyond pure preventive care like vaccines could potentially use a device like this. You're always going to have surgical cases that you would love to have post-op monitoring on. So this is not just about critical care, right? This is about being able to have immediate information about a pet that is recovering from anesthesia or that is ill and just hospitalized, even for the day. So yes, this would have applications in all clinics.
Yeah, coming out of sedation. Or even, I mean, if this was something to monitor pets that had just gone home with an illness, there's a huge potential for better monitoring systems. And I think it's a big pain point and frustration for a lot of practitioners. A lot of the ones that we have out there now, they fall off the pets easily. They, are constantly misreading because of just positioning and changing. Pets are hard to stick things on, because they're furry and they're all different shapes and sizes, and they try and pull things off, and definitely a challenge.
Great. Anar from Chicago. She says, hi from Healthy Dogs. I have been researching longevity, increasing health span, and slowing down offset of age-related diseases, cancer. And there are several prescription off-label drugs that slow down tumors. How much data do I need to convince vets to prescribe it to dogs with terminal diseases, diagnoses? I have not clinical but life data from 200 plus dog owners where drug extended life materially beyond expectations. Sorry, I can't read. Or do I need to do a trial in dogs with terminal cancer diagnoses to convince vets of the value of prescribing it to dogs?
To be straight up honest, you're probably going to have some sort of clinical trial to get anything beyond some early adopters and vets that have been convinced by owners to try this. There's, plenty of different reasons for that. Some of it's liability concerns, concerns that it works, and we're just naturally read any testimonials with a grain of salt. And it's not to say that they're not good. It's just that there's a lot of them out there, and not all of them are the same. So getting a solid research program set up with the university and some practitioners and clinicians that are really interested in kind of testing these out on a lot more cases and writing it up in some of the journals and peer-reviewed pieces would be very prudent if you want to make a bigger dent. And I think the nice thing is that once you do that, if this is something that is really, truly effective, which we hope, because it'd be a great thing to have, it naturally is going to take life from there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Unfortunately, clinical trial is still the gold standard, and will be for quite some time. So yeah, I think you'd have to get that.
Can you hear me? Sorry, this is Anar from Chicago.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So how, just to follow up, how does one go? Kind of next steps in terms of going about starting the clinical trial.
It's difficult, but it's actually not terribly hard. I think with our friend Google, you start just reaching out to clinicians and researchers in university. A lot of times, you can start to look who studies other things in the space. Go to people who have similar sorts of background and experience. And then a lot of times they're interested in they're looking for other things that'll work too. So how do I, find the next thing to try out? A lot of them are getting, proposals from other people. And some of these would be things that you need to pay for, but some of them you can find funding for the trial, and they may have resources to help you find that funding as well. But you just need to find somebody who is in line with what you're doing, has a research background around what you're doing, and is obviously interested. And then just finding that right partner will help guide you through the process.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Anar. Ayan says, hello, we are ideating on telemedicine for all pets and strays. as a vet, do you think people will accept this kind of treatment over the regular vet visits?
Not yet. And I say that, just being working in the space, I think that, their telemedicine has a much bigger place in the veterinary industry than today. And today, part of it is that the CPR, as Susie mentioned earlier, is quite restricted as far as, most places you cannot do any sort of diagnosis or treatment via a relationship that's established telephonically. I think that, as those regulations start to soften and, we can prove that there is a value and not a giant danger in going out and starting to treat something. There's tons of people working in this space and starting to do the early proof of concept. So the tides are turning here. The AVMA has actually introduced a model practice statement that actually starts to say, like, yes, that telemedicine does have a place in our industry, and that we should start to think about ways that we can safely embrace it. And just an interesting tidbit of kind of like thinking of starting new ideas like this. Not only new ideas, but getting traction for new ideas like this, going to spaces where there's naturally large amounts of underreached population just due to geography or resources of veterinarians is sometimes a way that you can get a little bit more traction in an area like this that in a traditional, like, in the state of Oregon, for example, our Current Practice Act says that we can't even prescribe a medication for a condition that we have not seen in the clinic before, even if we have a VCPR with that patient within that year. So, I mean, there's some places that are just super restrictive and are not conducive to trying to start out. So sometimes even like heading outside of the US, is to, think about if you really want to gain traction for something like this. And I'm not sure what you're thinking about for strays. They're obviously somebody administering and taking care of them.
Yeah, and I guess I understood your question slightly differently. Do pet parents have an appetite for this, or the people taking care of the pets? I think the answer there is yes. I think the challenge you run up against is the veterinary regulations around it. So you won't find vets who can do this kind of work because they would lose their license basically. But I think the pet parent appetite is absolutely there for telemedicine. It is far ahead of where the veterinary industry is or the veterinary regulations are around telemedicine. So that's kind of what you're up against in this space.
Thank you. I know we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to try to breeze through some of these last questions or other questions. Is there a go-to reference for pet nutrition?
Good question. There's a couple of great books out there. I do not remember the name off the top of my head, but some of the major texts is probably the best place that I would send you to.
I'll follow up with you on this, and then
yeah.
Hillary, why don't you remind me to, and then I can post answers to the Slack channel and or somewhere else. What would you see as benefits of an accurate non-rectal thermometer from Ben?
I think this goes back to Aletha's. If it works, great, right? Nobody wants to actually be sticking things up pets' butts. Most of all the pets, and particularly cats. So is there a benefit? Absolutely a benefit. The key is it has to work.
I think we found our marketing quote that we're going to use in future marketing.
Nobody wants to take things up pets' butts.
We asked the personality types. We already asked that kind of stuff. A question that was sent to me privately: is there any type of information on pet health you wish owners would keep better track of or pay more attention to? Again,
we could fill up an hour with this, but I mean, I'm going to go back to compliance. One is, if the pet is sick, are they keeping track of performing the therapy or distributing the therapy when it was needed? And just in general, I'm going to make a plug for two key things that I don't think we track properly on our pets. One is weight. Pets being overweight and obese is a huge issue. And so being able to accurately track weight or tracking weight, and actually as a pet parent being realistic about where your pet is on the skinny to obese spectrum is a huge area of opportunity. And I think the second one I would highlight is dental care. So the ability to track dental care in a great manner to ensure that the pet parent, again, are aware of what pet dental health really means and how to take care of a pet and how frequently potentially dental prophylaxis is necessary. Those would be my three things: compliance, dental care, and weight.
I absolutely completely agree. I probably add it's not necessarily solidly health related, but behavior and how their understanding of what normal dog behavior is and how to have a good canine citizen, because it's just so important on so many other levels of can you brush your dog's teeth because they're trained, and can you accomplish those things, and can your vet handle the dog, and can you bring them places and have them be good citizens.
Great. We have 5 or 6 minutes left. I'm going to go back to Lucia's questions since I think those are the ones that are left. But if anybody else has a question that I missed or wants clarification on, please chime in now. The question is, how difficult do you think it is to get specialized vets, and which veterinary specializations are most required? And are you talking, I just want to clarify, is the question for US or globally? I know you guys are from South America.
Yeah, we are from Uruguay. We were thinking globally, but if you don't have the answer for, worldwide, it would also be helpful to know what it is, how it is in the US.
Yeah, I don't know if Aletha does, but I don't have any numbers globally of how, kind of what the ratio of general practitioner to specialized vets is. I know in the States, certain specialties are very limited. Radiology comes to mind, for example. The number of board certified radiologists is really small. And I would say there's a huge opportunity for using technology to either make them more efficient or potentially take some of the cases off their hands. So I think the question is as you say in your question, it's different by specialist, but I think radiology is the one that comes to mind as being the most difficult right now. Aletha, what do you want to add to this one?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think I've taken a look at this, but when I'm looking at this, it's been the big markets that we tend to look at in the vet care space. I mean, and no apologies to anybody in any other ones, but Australia, UK, Europe, and the US tend to what's written out there that we have access to. And I think that's a desire that we understand more fully, like what sort of barriers. Barriers. I mean, there are in other locations. I mean, are there specialists available? Are they, is there an appetite for clients to use them? What sort of ways can we leverage technology to leverage our limited specialists, locally and perhaps globally? Radiologists obviously being the ones that technology is a little bit easier to leverage them in some ways, but I think the other conversation about a platform where you could specialist advice to practitioners can really expand the footprint of the limited specialists we have. It takes a long time to make a specialist. I mean, they're in school a really long time, and I think the other piece of it that when I think about they're in school a long time and other ways for them to increase their footprint and just go into veterinary compensation, obviously, it's not as highly compensated as field as humans. Doctors, and especially in the specialist market, so encouraging ways where they can actually have an increased reach and help to kind of compensate them for the amount of time that they spent learning their specialty. I mean, there's some of them that do really well financially, but most of them are doing just a small percentage, better than general practitioners, depending on where they're at. So having a way for them to distribute that knowledge and compensate for that knowledge would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think speaking about footprint, I mean, I think this is kind of obvious, but obviously where you live is hugely a factor in whether you're going to have access to a specialist as a pet parent. If you're in any kind of environment, you're kind of out of luck on that, and so you're either looking at a long drive to get your pet in front of a specialist, or you're looking to something like the platform you're developing, right? Their GP can get access to a specialist and then provide some more specialized care, even if they're not with a specialist. So yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity here. And obviously, rural to urban split is probably the same independent of country, just because, again, of where these specialists tend to congregate. So, no matter where you're looking in the world, I'm sure that statistic holds true.
Okay, and do you have any idea on pricing, on how much telehealth can be charged? I mean, in comparison to face-to-face consultation?
That's a great question, and I think that that's something that we're just trying to figure out, like showing the value to the client so that they will, appropriately compensate that veterinarian for their time. Like I mentioned, there's a really long amount of time and a huge amount of effort to gain that specialty, and how do we make it affordable for both the client and worth close time so that they can basically afford to pay back their loans and their their time to pay.
Yeah, and I think the price differential would be significant if you're talking about a telemedicine consult between a GP and a client, or if you're talking about a specialist and a client, or you're talking about a specialist and a GP, right? And which obviously that cost gets passed on to the customer at the end, right? But I think as Aletha mentioned, there's a ton of people working in the telemedicine space. Pricing is quite variable, even just in the GP to client area. And so I think the industry is still trying to figure out what the pricing is. So I don't think I wouldn't be comfortable giving a price. I think we're all still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, $59.95, and what units that is, I don't know.
I'm going to jump in there because we're getting to 11:30. Alana, we will get to your question in Slack. Susie and Aletha, thank you so much for the last hour, and I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation. Please give us some feedback and what you thought. Tell me what worked, what didn't work, and what you want us to try again in the future. Hopefully, the two doctors will come back. But thank you all so very much, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Saad. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.